world of this world of Zooming, and I welcome you. I don't want this to be all about me because it isn't. It's all about me serving all about you. And so I would like you to feel free to use the chat room to ask questions or make comments or answer my questions. So I would like you to start by answering a question. What is the hardest thing about PD for you right now? Is it gait? Is it swallowing? Is it your voice? If you could take to the chat room, if you're comfortable, let me know what the hardest thing is for you right now. Anxiety, of course. Dexterity, tremor, unpredictability. Isn't that so? Voice projection, unable to sleep. Oh, that's a tough one. Balance and feeling overwhelmed. I hear you, dear. Balance, gait, voice projection. Stiffness. Slow, stiff legs, tough climbing stairs. Yep. Loss of fluidity of movement. So for all of the things that you've talked about here that are difficult with PD, that PD wants to take from you, music is a wonderful response. It's a wonderful way to sort of duke it out with PD and say, no, you're not going to take this from me. Music is deeply resourced. In terms of balance, that is less pliable to music. However, by working on movements that are timed, it's going to improve your balance. I'm thinking through in my head, I have a balance disorder and I went through PT. And of course, she didn't use any music to make it more engaging, more fun, more robust. But we could add music to those exercises that do help with balance as we would with any of the other issues. So I will look to said on-off times. I presume you mean the medicines. Okay, so from head to toe, music is one of the great answers for the questions of how to function with PD. And I feel really blessed that I've accumulated this information and that Beth Israel has given me a chance to help disseminate it to the people who can really benefit. So let's take a look at the agenda that I've set. I have kind of a wonky, uncooperative system. Here we go. So you might be surprised to see that swallowing is on here. Not only do I want you to think about how to treat the issues that you just named, but I want you to think about how to prevent the issues that PD will want to attack, because the movement portion of the brain that Parkinson's is underlying speech, which is movement, swallowing, which is movement, and of course, gait. And as people become more socially isolated with PD, because it's just so hard to go out, etc., then we'll look at cognition and well-being. And I see that there's a hand raised. Please feel free to come on.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. If you're trying to share your slides, we can only see your cover slide for now.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let me try that again. Does that work?
Yes, we can see your slides now.
Okay, marvelous. I think it's because it was in play mode. And it somehow changed that. Okay, so here's the list that I feel very comfortable and deeply resourced to talk about: speech, swallowing, and it really should put in voice as part of speech, movement of all kinds, fine motor as well as gross motor, cognition, being able to remain sharp, emotional well-being, being resilient, being able to manage the anxiety, all to equal a quality of life. So these are the things that you can look toward music to be supportive of. So let's take a look at swallowing, because it seems like the least likely skill set that music could address, right? You might have been surprised to see it on the list. Well, I'm also an LSVT practitioner as a speech language pathologist. And what happened with LSVT research as they were working on speech, they found that people's voices improved. Their swallowing improved. And this was unexpected. From my standpoint, I think it should have been completely expected, but I have the benefit of having both of these domains of skills as a music therapist and a speech language pathologist. And so the vocal cords, their fundamental role, and you can see them down here in the gray, is to protect your lungs. The fact that we speak with these vocal folds is completely secondary to their primary role, which is to protect the lungs from infiltration of food or drink. And when we swallow the wrong side, the wrong tube rather, you cough wildly because it is essential to get any material well away from the lungs. So the vocal folds are really imperative in that role. And again, talking is secondary and singing is secondary. But when we sing, and we put them into adduction. So the vocal folds are two cartilages that when they vibrate together, create a voice. And let me tell you, just to really honor how intricate our biology is that my vocal cords are probably coming in and out about 90 times a second. A second. That's a tremendous movement effort. And given that you have a movement disease, you can see how that would impact your vocal cords. For speech in LSVT, and I imagine some of you may have done LSVT, it's a wonderful program. Hard to get through, people say. But when you do that and you have to be loud, it puts your vocal folds together in the position that allows them to beautifully make a strong sound, not or breathy. They come together and of course apart, but they come together better. That's what improved the swallowing. The vocalizing improved the swallowing. And I would very much like to suggest that you consider singing in your home every day as a way to prevent the issues that may come up with swallowing. And if your speech is affected and your voice sounds tremulous or breathy, then know that the movement of the vocal cords is also being impacted by the Parkinson's as well as the medication. But if every time you stood up, you went, when you pushed off, if you were in, just walking down the hall and you just vocalized, those are the kind of times when you weave it throughout your day versus one block of practice. That's going to be wonderful for you. And make it fun, because it should be on my headstone. It doesn't matter how well you sing. It does matter that you sing. All right. If you want to go to Berkeley or Boston Conservatory, it sure does matter how well you sing. But if you want to prevent swallowing issues, if you want to get the best voice for the longest possible period of time to share your needs and wants and opinions, then sing. And I don't care if you're on pitch, you never hit a pitch, it doesn't matter. It just matters that you sing. And if you're able to distribute the practice throughout the day, it will help. So when LSVT first came out, It helped solve a problem with speech. So with PD speech at the level of the mouth, people were not making a good p sound or a good t sound or a good k sound. And so we would work with wordless, and you were to repeat pass, pat, pack, patch, and kind of over enunciate. And then people would go off and still sound really Parkinson's like. When they flipped this model and started to work on strong, loud, long vocalizations, all this took care of itself at the level of the mouth. That's phenomenal. So really want to focus on bottom up for the success of swallowing and the success of speech. Music is really a tremendous resource for that. And so I thought I would stop and see whether there are any questions. I see put in the Q&A, voice and drooling. So there's all of this oral motor weakness that has drooling, and they're doing really using the hum, using your lips together. That is going to increase the muscle tone in that. A speech therapist may have given you oral motor exercises to pucker, to smile, to really pull back, and then to go back and forth. Those are also little calisthenics for the mouth. I imagine the sensation is a little off, so you may not always know it that it's happening, and it kind of catches you. So the sensation would be difficult to work with, but in terms of just having good muscle tone, you can really look at humming and singing. You know, if you're kind of antsy, you know, just have fun with it, and just don't let it float away from you. Okay. Voice gets hoarse after talking for a few hours on Zoom calls. Oh, I feel for you. When we all went home in 2020, you know, it was Zoom all day, all day. So in terms of being hoarse, if you think about my vocal fold vibrating, opening and closing 90 times a second, there's a tremendous amount of heat being generated in that activity. The voice really needs to, you need to be well hydrated so that that system gets hydration. And so drinking water, anything that's caffeinated, like my lovely cappuccino here, is going to dehydrate. So it's really good to push water. I think drinking water was my most successful year with a New Year's resolution. I vowed to drink more water. So when I sit down for a work day or wherever I am, I will bring a pitcher of water and a glass. So not just a glass. And I just keep filling it up. And it became a habit, and it was my most successful New Year's resolution. So, and also I would suggest the possibility of building breaks in between. At the college, we have 10-minute breaks. That's not sufficient for my voice to be in recovery. It really isn't. And it might be, if it was possible to put a broader spectrum of time, like a half an hour, that may be helpful. And if it isn't, then please just take heed of the hydration, and see if that doesn't support your vocalizing. Does Gert injure the vocal cords? Absolutely. It is going to, as it comes back up, it is going to be an issue for the vocal cords. And so there, again, being hydrated is really key, and having the kind of medications to control your GERD if possible. I'm sure you've tried to go through all of those, and if they haven't worked, I'm really sorry. But the acidity from stomach content can very much be difficult on the vocal cords. Okay. All right. I'm seeing says you started to sing a lot, but you started yodeling for fun and found the louder you sang, your voice and confidence came back. That's absolutely spot on. You're a poster person for all the things that I'm saying here. And I think it's just grand that you did yodeling. Let me show you or tell you how that works. When we sing high, the vocal folds are tight and long. When we sing low, they're kind of fat and short and fleshy. So when you're yodeling, ee-oo, 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 you're moving them back and forth, much like when I go to the gym and I'm working with weights in range of motion. That's what you're doing for the vocal folds. That's their little vocal fold calisthenics. So what a wonderful example. I wish I had bifocals. I feel like I really need them now. So I think we got to talk about this to sufficiency. Oh, you know what? It bounced over. Let me go back a little bit. Why is music important? And somebody's asking for bigger slides. Let me see. Okay. These slides are looking different than they would in the mode, but thank you for noting that. Why are we talking about music? Like, why can music accomplish all of these marvelous things? Why are they connected to non-musical skills? This is an important question. In fact, it's so important that I've spent the last 6 months writing a book about it. If you look at why is music important, from an anthropological stance, it is some of the earliest artifacts we have yet found was the innovation of making flutes out of the bones of bird wings and other types of bones in tusk. Can you imagine that they were figuring out how to make flutes? And if you were to hear the flutes, they play in melodies that we would find very pleasing today, melodies that are the scales that we still use today. So what we can see is that from a very ancient perspective, from the earliest records of time, 40,000 years ago, music was of critical importance, perhaps critical importance for innovation, for the development of our brains, critical importance in bonding us together. Like even just description of her yodeling, I feel bonded to her. Like I would love to have lunch with her. I would love to be able to go and hear her vocalizations. You know, there's that way that music brings us together. And of course, when we were together, we were able to survive better. Another response to why is music so important is that most everything that's important about music is innate. You know where the beat is in music. We see that at birth. Isn't that amazing that we can understand that babies perceive rhythm? They perceive an error in that rhythm, and they do these tests on them when they're sleeping. We are born with the capacity to know where the beat is, and Parkinson's will not take that from you. It will take your muscle strength, your range of motion, but it will not take this. When you were born, you recognized your mother's voice versus other women's voices from birth. And that ability to zone in on certain frequencies and voices is absolutely key to the fundamentals for music development. When you were in your mother's womb, you would have recognized familiar music, music you'd heard before versus something that was new. So you have memory for melodies that you were born with. Everything after that, of course, is learned. Downstairs right now, there's a boy of about 11 years old who's studying saxophone and clarinet with my husband, who's a wonderful teacher. And he comes in and he does the hard task every Saturday of showing what he was able to gain over the past week, working on scales, working on fundamentals. And this is changing his brain every time he picks up his instrument. So a musician's brain is vastly different in its structure and its function than a non-musician's brain. That's the only occupation or skill set that we really have done that research on. And it's those changes to the parts of the brain that process music that impact not non-music. What I've seen over my 40 years now in music therapy is that music remains intact. And whether you acquire a disease or disorder like Parkinson's or a stroke, or whether you're born with one like autism and cerebral palsy, it is very, very robust. It is resilient against any diseases and on. And I see a question coming in. Please feel free to ask, or there was a raised hand. Please feel free to get on the mic if you wish. Oh, well, I get too loud to talk. Okay.
I was curious if you could repeat what expands in a musician's brain.
Everything. Music. So when I teach neuroscience at the college, I teach that the back of your head is the area in the brain for visual processing. The front, right above here, is the most marvelous set of skills, which is reasoning and problem solving, impulse control. Over here is language comprehension. Here is speech production, but there's no single music center. It is embedded throughout the brain. It is diffusely activated, and it is robust even with diseases. So everything changes because of music. Left, right, bottom, top, cortical and subcortical, if you know those terms. Impressive?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I always think that that's just marvelous. Would you like to ask your question, dear?
Does it matter what kind of music, like classical or just to listen to for pleasure?
You should listen to what you love, and you should consider deepening your relationship to what you love. So if you have something like Pandora, if you have one of those streaming devices, particularly Pandora, you can plug in an artist name and hear similar artists, some that you don't know. Every time, like, I'm introduced to all kinds of music that young people are interested in at Berkeley, some that I certainly don't like, but I listen to it. When I have, like, when a student does an audition or mentions an artist or a song, I can go to Pandora and I can get into some deep listening, and I can sit there and say, you know, I do like this song. I'm going to save this song, and we'll talk more about playlists and how to organize your music. But what you love makes a difference, particularly in the next point about neurochemical releases. There are all kinds of releases made to music, you know, to music that you love, to music that gives you the chills. And those neurochemical releases include dopamine, your own internal dopamine, the one thing that is waning in you biologically. And we don't have this through research, but we do know that whether it would replace it or help to catalyze your own dopamine productions, when you have music that gives you the chills and the shivers up and down your spine, that's releasing tremendous dopamine. So I would be sure to include music that you love that gives you that chills effect. That said, you don't want to listen to the same playlist every day or the same music all the time, because that's going to wane. You know, you get tired of it. Like, I'm so tired of James Taylor's music, not because he isn't a wonderful artist that's done great songs. It's simply because they've been overplayed. And so it's lost that luster. And I love Paul Simon's Graceland album, but I only let myself listen to it like once or twice a year because it's so precious to me, and I'm trying to protect it from overuse. Okay, so let's see. I'm wondering, can you see my slides now? because I hear some questions there. And can you see all these chat rooms? I think I'm going to have to go back and forth. All right. So talking about the Corpus Callosum, yes, that's a huge part. And I'm glad you read Your Brain on Music with Dan Levitin. It's a lovely book, and it's one that we use at the college quite a bit. So what we want to look at and I have no idea what your ages are, but I know that Parkinson's is from 50 years of age and up, if I'm correct. You still have plasticity, and that plasticity in your brain, that capacity for it to change is still there. So the notion that old dogs can't learn new tricks is wrong. All people can change their brain by being engaged in meaningful activities. It can be changed, of course, through trauma or really bad experiences, but we want to stay in the light. We want to stay in the light and give our brain good, interesting things to do. For example, I have really bad visual spatial intelligence. It's really quite severe. And when I worked in home care, I had to read maps. And it was really good because that was very cognitively engaging. And I know my brain changed because my skills changed. I got better at it. And I try to do puzzles and things like that to keep those skills alive, especially now that we have GPSs. I still make myself use a map because the GPS makes that part of my brain that's not so spiffy, it makes it really dormant. And of course, I don't want to do that. All right, on this slide, the last part is that music is cost effective, it's accessible, it's a familiar friend. In my practice, I've really only met one person who didn't like music over the years. And he was of a religion that disallowed anything but church music, and he didn't go to church. So he was really not getting or drawn to any of that. So I see that there's a hand raised, and I'm going to, in fact, Hannah, if you could let people who raise their hands to have the microphone.
Yes, I will do that right now.
Hi. So thank you for all this. I don't want to make this too personal, but could you just expand a little bit on the benefits of playing instruments while you have this condition? I am actually a pretty good guitar player, and I also play a little bit of piano, but I've actually stopped playing since I got my diagnosis because my right hand tremors affect it negatively, and it's hard to get worse when you used to be better. And I know I'm going to get only worse. So how should I think about that? It's just discouraging, and I've actually started to play a lot less than I used to because of this. But I'm hearing from you it might be beneficial.
Those are very challenging, to be a musician and to get Parkinson's. And so what I would suggest with the piano is that you look at it as a piano treadmill, no longer just the device that creates beauty, and to be very, very devoted to a metronome. So when you do scales or any of those, make sure that you take those practices for timing. You want to think timing because it can bypass some of the tremoring when you're focused on a target, and time helps us focus on a target. So use your metronome and begin to be religious playing it. If you want to record yourself at this time and make sure that's part of the legacy of meaning in your life, I would encourage you to do that. And you could get a metronome that goes in your ear, so that wouldn't be part of the recording. And that should help you. I would suggest playing a piece without the metronome and playing a piece with the metronome, and judging for yourself where the efficacy is. In terms of guitar, that's really going to be a tough instrument. I am sorry to say, if the fine motor is going, if the tremor is in your right hand, that would work out pretty well. If the tremor is in your left, that would be harder, of course. But here again, I would suggest using the the metronome to force the timing, to get your brain, because we have feed forward brains that try to hit that beat. We don't respond to the beat. And so that helps organize the motor system better. As a musician myself, I feel you in the loss of your music and very much encourage you to consider recording yourself now and letting that be a part of your playlist, that this is what you did, this is what you could do, and you still have it with you through the gift of recording.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Is there another hand raised? Very good. So now let's go to the next slide, and I have to come in and out of my slides. Pardon? I overdid it. So I hope you're aware of all the singing groups throughout the world now to work on Parkinson's. I've visited many, and I have issues with the way that they're run, depending on who's running them. So let me give you what I think works best. You should work on music, not that is necessarily seasonal, although that's not a bad thing. But really, what do you need? I would think singing songs of resilience, singing songs to practice relaxation. It would be wonderful to use your music, not to sing kitschy pop kinds of things, but really think about what do you need from music emotionally. And I see confidence in the list. And I know how socially isolating this can be. You need a song of resilience. So I will say that when I went through cancer treatment for 15 months, and after a while, I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I let myself just feel really crappy about having to do it, having to submit, feeling really done in by this. And then it would be time to go to the hospital, and I would fix my hair and put a smile on my face because I had sung, "When you walk through the storm, throw my head up high, so I won't be afraid of the dark. 'Cause at the end of the storm, there is a golden sky in the sweet silver song of the lark. I'll walk on through the wind, I'll walk on through the rain, though my dreams be tossed and blown. I'll walk on, with hope in my heart, and I'll never walk alone. No, I'll never walk alone." And when you have a song like that, whatever it is that has meaning to you, it gives you courage. And it reminds you, as we all need to be reminded, we are not alone. Even if you are alone, we are not spiritually, emotionally, socially alone. And that can mean everything. I knew I would have to take the treatment, but I was not alone for all of the things that gave my life meaning. And who was I to complain about the treatment? I just went and did what needed to be done. What songs give you courage when you feel vulnerable? So I see that there's a question. Let me go to that. Digital electronic piano has a lighter touch and helps you a lot. Also play when you're having a good medication response. Excellent advice. And some tremors may do better with a harder touch, with a firmer touch. And that's something that could be explored too. And if it's electronic, you can choose. Really excellent contribution. This is why I wanted us to collaborate this morning. And I think that's the only question. Okay. So let's talk about breath control. Okay, fundamental to maintaining your voice is breath control, and that therefore is fundamental to the LSVT. How many seconds can you vocalize? When I sang a portion of that song, my voice cacked out at the end of a phrase because I hadn't taken a deep enough breath and I hadn't controlled it well. And so that's what happens is at the end of phrases, you just kind of, without good breath control, the ends of your phrases die, right? So part of it is working to have breath control from your belly, not your shoulders, and not your ribs. When we go, those are the tiniest and most ineffectual muscles possible. But when you use your belly and it goes out, that's when you get full lung expansion. The diaphragm is underneath your lungs and it is dome shaped as a muscle. It's what helps your lungs deflate. And when you breathe into your belly, it becomes concave and the opposite so that the lungs can inflate optimally. And by doing long sustained tones and exercises like maybe in the beginning you can only go then work to do 4 notes or 6 notes or 8 notes, use a timer, take a ballad. And if you think, like, there was a lovely one I worked on a patient with, he liked Tom Petty, and they had long phrases. I forgive it all. I forgive it all. And they sang along to that. The part about LSVT that has a lot of attrition is that they just sing single notes, and it's really challenging, although it's really good. There's no real reason for just a single pitch. You can sing along to songs and cultivate a playlist of slower songs that are just right for this, like You'll Never Walk Alone or I Forgive It All by Tom. Actually, it's called Mudcrutch, his band Mudcrutch. But I'm thinking Frank Sinatra, My Way. And now the end is near. Although that may be sad. Think about it. If it makes you sad, don't do it. If only do songs that make you happy or make you feel tender. And if there is a choir in your area, if I was made goddess today and I could make all these things happen, you would go to a choir and it would be intergenerational. There would be children there. There would be other folks there. It wouldn't just be folks with Parkinson's. There would be social affiliation. People who are younger than you would learn what it is to walk this walk. But anyhow, you would come into choir. We would do warm-up exercises like me, 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 me. Those are great warm-up exercises, but you should be doing them throughout the rehearsal. So you sing a couple songs, you go and do 1 or 2 of those type of exercises because that's exactly targeting the calisthenics of the vocal folds. So Bob Blue's parody of Their Way. Oh, I'll have to hear that. That sounds really funny. Thank you for that referral. I would like to direct you to looking at the program on YouTube, which is Music in Mind with Renee Fleming, my favorite artist, bar none, is very, very devoted to music therapy and music as a resource for diseases and disorders across the lifespan. In addition to the singing choirs, of course, are the marvelous works of the Mark Morris troupe. When I teach at Boston Conservatory, I'm lucky to have dancers in my group. And when I show them the Dancing for PD, they all go down and do the training. I'm so proud of them. They really want to bring this to you, and they're going to bring their own sensibilities in music and in all to bear. So leave it to a movement expert to create movement exercises that are fun. When you think about going to the gym or the PT gym, generally we get on machines. Arm treadmills, bikes. But here you've got music driving movement at the right tempo with the right reasons. You are expressive with arms that are creating range of motion for joints that typically don't get that, but need it for dressing and all kinds of ADLs. So this is a wonderful program that Renee put together, and she has a whole series on different talks, and they're just marvelous. And for Dan Levitin fans, she did a beautiful one with Dan and with Victor Wooten, a fantastic, brilliant bass player who's also faculty at Berkeley and was with Bella Fleck. My apologies. To repeat what LSVT means, thank you, anonymous attendee. So LSVT is Lee Silverman Voice Treatment, named after Lee Silverman, and it's the program that's called Think Loud. And then they have Move Big, I think is what they've done in their movement program. But there's really the music missing. And if you went to the gym and say that you went in to do a Zumba class or a silver shoes Zumba class and the speaker was broken, would you stay and exercise without music? I don't know of hardly anybody who goes to the gym without music. Why should PT be without music? Why can't we use this very natural relationship of music and movement at a time when you have a movement disorder? Would you like to ask your question?
You promoted me, so I have that access now.
Thank you.
What I wanted to say was, and I had raised my hand earlier, but I was looking for the right spot, and I think this is great. When I do PT, we do use music. And what I found is when we get a set of music that works, and you spoke to it a little bit, just the cadence of it, getting a rhythm that I can work out to. And also what I've found is particularly a lot of the music that I listened to in high school that was really moving for me, I can transfer my mind somewhere else and just get in the rhythm. And the balance stuff and doing it, anything we're doing and particularly trying new things is super easy, and I can just get in the flow and go.
Yes, wonderful. It's a perfect example, and I'm glad that you're PT or sensitive to it. There have been tremendous publications in PT journals about this, but like anything, it's a movement, of creating this kind of information and disseminating it to all who practice. And I'm really glad you did. I think about at the time, like in the 80s, when I would go to the gym, or the 90s, I guess it was, and they would play Madonna. I just didn't like Madonna. So my workout was vastly different. But if they did swing music or the Talking Heads, man, my feet were going up over my head. I was over exercising because the music was driving me. I think the point is that music shouldn't be auditory wallpaper. It shouldn't be something that is just in the background, and putting on the radio is not sufficient, because you spoke beautifully that when you have the right music, you move optimally. And so the radio also presents a problem because it has advertisements in it. And we want to, in a few slides, we'll talk about creating those kind of playlists that really allow you to do your best effort. Just like my talking heads kind of playlist. I'm always going to work really effectively to that. But we also want to have many playlists so that we're not always doing the same thing. And our mind likes that novelty, like some surprises. Thank you for that. Your timing was indeed perfect. So we've talked about swallowing. So here we go into movement. There's something called an app, a tap app for your phone. It means that somebody can take a song and tap along to it, and then it's going to tell you it's 78 beats per minute, which would equal 78 steps per minute, the average being about 60, I think, 60 to 72, something like that. Like if I'm running, I would want 110, but I don't always want to stay at 110 because maybe I couldn't do that and I want natural rest cycles. So have a medium piece of music like 88 beats per minute, then do 100, and then maybe do 70, so that you create playlists that allow you to extend your work. I not only work better to the talking heads, I would work longer. I would do, an hour instead of 45 minutes. And in fact, I'd probably do an hour where I wasn't ever even looking at the clock. I was just happily in my sonic bubble, just working my heart out. So the Tap app, you can talk about with your PT about creating one, but I also understand on Spotify that there are lists that are organized for Parkinson's folks by beats per minute. If you like the music, then you just have to add you, and that would be great. Dance, of course, is that other level beyond walking that makes doing this work so much more fun. And that's why the gift of the Mark Morris Dance Studio is very much there. And I hope that you all know my friend Pamela Quinn's work. You can find that online. She is a professional dancer in New York, and she has PD. This is the best work I have ever seen, is Pamela Quinn. And in fact, my favorite was done at the World Parkinson's Federation meeting. So dance is just going to bring the joy in. Think about the difference between dancing and being on a treadmill. I have seen people, because I play in a swing band, I have seen elders with terrific infirmities sort of going over to the dance floor and then dancing beautifully. Because once the beat is into your brain, all movement is going to be better. And this research has been out for about 30 years, which is why, to hear people saying like that, that there are PTs using it is really, really great. And I'm suggesting the Pro Metronome app works well for this, and there's a free version. Thank you again for making a good contribution. That's really helpful. And if you are not comfortable with the technology, then get a kid to do it for you. I serve on the school board in my community, and I serve as the liaison of the school board to the senior center. And so we have children gaining community hours through the senior center. This is exactly what they can do for you. They can set up all and teach you how to easily use these things without you figuring it out for yourself. Let young people learn from you as an elder, and let them be helpful with what seems so natural to them. And then it's a win-win, win-win situation all around. I would call your local senior center and see if that works. If your school committee does not have a liaison for elders to make these sorts of things happen, then call the superintendent's office and say that this would be something helpful. And the guidance counselors are also looking for volunteer hours for students. And so you could even make it happen in your community if it isn't already. Okay. Cognition. Who are we without our cognitive abilities, our abilities to think, to remember, to use language to express ourselves, whether they are our wants and needs, our opinions and feelings. Who are we without cognition? It really is what defines humanity, and music is deeply connected with cognition. So for me, I am a lousy, lousy morning person. My husband will tell you I just about throw my phone against the wall when it rings. I always feel like I'm being ripped out of sleep. So I'm not good in the morning, and I teach 9 a.m. classes at the college. I live an hour away by train. And so I am looking at how I can use music to prime my attention, to make me feel alert and awake. So the music starts off very slowly. It's this Indian piece that I like really well. It's very slow. And once I get into the first Boston train stop, I put it on. And then there are like 4 minutes left until my train stop at, they're calling it not Boston Landing, Lansdowne. It had been Yawkey Way, but now it's Lansdowne. And so by the time I get to Lansdowne, I'm a few minutes into this in this nice, slow tempo, a single instrument, and then a voice is added, and then it keeps adding. And now I'm walking by Fenway Park, and the music is getting richer, and it's making me feel a little more alert because it's engaging my whole system, my whole brain. And then the next piece of music is faster, slightly faster. So now I'm walking at that tempo, and I'm going to use music that I really love in that second and third position. So by the time I get to the coffee shop at 7:30, now I'm on sabbatical right now. I wake up at 8 or 8:30 naturally. Think about it. At 7:30, I'm already in Boston going, how did I get here? But when I use music to prime my attention, by the time I'm in that classroom at 9 a.m., I am bright as a button, and I am delivering what these students are paying for. And I feel very, very strongly about that. So in music therapy, it's called the ISO principle. If you like, I was not going to start my departure from the train with high energy music. It was too far from where I was. So I had music meet me where I am, and then nudged me to follow. On the other end of cognition, particularly for those who are having sleep issues, and I know somebody had said that was a symptom that was really challenging for them. I feel for you, because sleep is like the power button on your computer. When your computer is lagging and it's stuck and not working, which is probably what my issue is today, because I have 100 tabs open. The first thing an IT person is going to tell you to do is to reset it, to restart it. And then it puts it back to its fundamental working algorithms. That's what sleep does for the human brain. It sets everything back, growth hormones and all of your internal workings. So much of it is done at night, including memory, which is why if you disturb your sleep, you cannot remember anything, and you do not remember what happened that day that you did not sleep that night. I will say to my students every time they leave class, did you get $300 worth of your tuition monies? They don't like to talk about how much they're paying for tuition, but that's what they're paying. And I'll say, if you found that this fed you, that this was fascinating, that it stoked your curiosity, sleep tonight and own it, or else it will go through you like a bad burrito, right? So sleep is of critical importance. And of course, young people are completely corrupted in sleep because of, the way that we schooled them. But Parkinson's disturbs sleep, as well as aging disturbs sleep. So what music can you listen to 45 minutes before you hope to be asleep, and listen to it for 30 minutes, maybe have a chamomile tea, if you can tolerate that. It is contraindicated with heart medications. Talk to your pharmacist or physician. But what are the rituals that you can do to support your sleep? And the place that music has that is having music that starts at a medium level and then goes in the opposite direction of the playlist I just described. Things that get more legato, more ballad-like, slower. Maybe even you would prefer something like ambient sound or ocean sounds. And then without, you could go to sleep to that, but really we were built to go to sleep to quiet. So if you can try it several ways. 45 minutes before, do 30 minutes of music, 15 minutes of quiet reading, perhaps gentle reading, nothing scary like the news, but just something like a story, and then cast off to sleep. Or you can put time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes of music into your sleep time and just start to go to sleep to the music. Let it carry you away. Remember the old commercial like Calgon? Let it carry you away, but start at medium, low energy and step it down in your playlist. There is a film as well called Sleepless in America, and it is done by National Geographic. You can watch it online and you can look at the science around sleep. And there were some added slides or in films, not outtakes, but added ones on the DVD for solving some of these problems. And maybe your library would have that. And in fact, maybe your library would show it for an evening, because there's no manual about how to run our bodies, how to govern over our bodies. And there really could be a manual, like how to lift properly so you don't hurt your back, how to protect your sleep. That would be a really important thing to do. So, emotional well-being. This is where the ISO principle is so important. We call it ISO principle in music therapy, meaning same, ISO, same. But really think about music meeting you where you are. And we talked about cognitive alertness on the train. We talked about the rhythm that got my body moving faster, which is also part of making my brain more cognitively alert, all the oxygen. But now we're talking about it from an emotional standpoint. If you're feeling sad, if you're feeling like you lack confidence, if you feel like you're disappearing, what music meets you there? And once you are met there, what is the song that comes after it that pushes the needle away from that uncomfortable but natural emotional state? Maybe you do need to stay there for a little bit longer. Is there another song that meets you in that same space? And it could be it meets you because of the lyrics, like You'll Never Walk Alone, or it could be that it's the rhythm, like I'm really rhythmically driven. Perhaps it's the rhythm that meets you. I know that From a Sad to Glad playlist, it would really be bluesy. And there's like my daughter, I used to, when I had CDs that I put out for her when she was a toddler, and she would ask for The Sad Man with the Guitar, and that was Johnny Cash. It was his last album. So I could start there, but I know if I'm pushing the needle, I'm probably going to want to end up dancing because I love to just move to music. And so what's in between those two? If you're mad, and damn well you should be mad at anything that would ding the quality of your life, the quality of your life experience. But of course, it's not healthy to stay mad. And so what music makes you expresses that? For me, it's not the words, but it's the feeling of Jimi Hendrix's manic depression. Oh my, manic depression, it's a thing gonna miss. That meets my anger. But I'm not going to want to sit there, and I'm not going to want to listen to tons of it. I'm going to want to get that one, and then I'm going to want to lighten my load. So what music would help you lighten the load rather than carry it? And when you practice all of these things, you're going to reduce your stress. So our bodies have two systems: stress, anxiety, and there was anxiety there for him, of course. And I think somebody else had said that when the stress response is kicked in, you have an upregulated blood pressure, upregulated heart rate, and steroids in your body that are meant to help you run or fight and to fuel an effort. So you can do that for 6 minutes, not 3. The opposite biological system is rest and restoration. Music can help you practice that by putting together a relaxing playlist. Like, it can be 20 to 25 minutes is ideal, where you practice stress reduction every day. And there are 2 ways to look at it, and others that want to really use today to make tomorrow better is to take music that you really set aside the time to. If you do it in the morning, it can lower your homeostatic baseline rate. If you do it when you are anxious, you're kind of swimming against the tide. So one is prevention and one is treatment. But I would recommend having 2 or 3 playlists that are 20 to 25 minutes long. I would want you to plug into those memories that are really key. Like, if it connects you to being at the beach, or if it doesn't connect you through a memory, that you sit and listen to that music and think about the people that you love in your life, and you think about the places that you love. For me, there's one beach to the left, not the right, on Cape Cod, that is my place to tuck into in my mind. The imagery that we're able to conjure in our minds can be as richly satisfying as being there. For example, when I'm imaging that place, my visual processing center is all lit up. It looks the same as if I'm open-eyed and looking at something. Add that to the listening playlist. Be intentional. Use it in the morning if you can. I've had people I've done this with who would go out to their car at lunchtime and do that practice for 20, 25 minutes. I remember one woman worked for Child Protective Services. So she had a very stressful, very difficult job. And she would go out to her car, and then she would still have a half an hour more for lunch. And so that was a very intentional practice on her part. Think about where those problem areas are in your day. Think about treating them with music, but especially preventing getting so upregulated. Maybe you get this upregulated versus whoosh, very upregulated. So my question for you is to consider, what songs are comforting to you? What are those go-to songs, like I'll Never Walk Alone is for me, that makes you feel comforted? I have a playlist of music called Comforting Music. I have a playlist from sad to glad. Most playlists are organized by the genre or the artist, but I organize them by my needs. I have one called Kitchen Dancing, which is a lot of fun. And my morning playlist is called Waking to a Beautiful World, because I'm in all ways trying to convince myself that being up in the morning is good. What songs make you feel brave? What songs give you confidence? When the PD is starting to try to get at that, what makes you feel confident? What songs make you laugh? I worked with a choir of adults with disabilities, and we did this one time. It was like, these boots are made for walking, just, funny songs, but what gives you joy? And one thing that I do in my practice is I make time to laugh every day. And if you've never seen the program from Canada called Just for Laughs, you can have a ball, hours and hours and hours of silly pranks, and they're just fun. But I make sure that I spend time laughing every day. It is part of my practice. And of course, that's going to release the endorphins and neurochemistry, including dopamine for that. I'd also like for people to think about, what is your music living will? What is the music that you would want to have played if you cannot speak for yourself? If people are trying to reach you, to reach across anesthesia, to reach across even a state of coma, what would be that music for you? I often say that for me, it would be Louis Armstrong, Jerry Mulligan, who is a Barry sax player. I play Barry sax. In my husband's music, except the music that he recorded with his ex-girlfriend. Like I don't want to hear that again. So everybody's needs are very specific. Be specific and communicate a music living will that will help bring you back into the stream of your life. That's one playlist, and a music living will that will send you into whatever that transition is. The ears are often said to be the last to shut down in the process of dying. What will those moments be filled with? For me, it will be Renee Fleming, and it will still be Louis Armstrong. So there very much can be duplication across those two playlists, but they do serve very unique needs. And explore music, deepen your relationship to music. Say for YouTube films, when YouTube first came out, I was like, I don't really understand this. And then my husband said, look up Ella Fitzgerald. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, I explored Ella Fitzgerald, and I was overjoyed. There were two songs I left for the very last, because every time they kept coming up, I'm like, no, I don't want to hear her sing Old MacDonald. I was so wrong. I was such a jerk about that. It's brilliant. And it's so much fun to also see what I hear. And that adds value to just hearing. But streaming systems like Pandora, you can go and look up an artist and get to know artists that are similar to their, expand your taste in music. In Spotify, you can even do calming playlist or a playlist of music for sleep, that kind of a thing. Exhaust your local library for music, explore what they've got. Suggest that you would like to have programs about deepening your relationship to music and why music matters. Create a community that's really thinking about it. Share with one another. Perhaps in this program, if you've met before, you could share your ideas and what works and what isn't working well with others. I also find it absolutely fabulous to look at biographies. It's cognitively stimulating and it deepens my relationship to music. And I would say I just watched the two series or two shows of Frank Sinatra's biography, and I just thought it was fabulous. I really loved hearing the stories around the songs, and it just deepened all of my relationships, which has been lifelong with Sinatra. But to see him with Basie's orchestra, it's a dream come true. So really look to finding ways to bring films into your life. Have you ever watched an opera? Would you like to consider watching an opera? And if you do, don't go into it cold. Read up on it beforehand, and you can watch the story play out, or you can just close your eyes and listen to the music. And I would well imagine you will find music that runs the chills response for you in that genre. Oh, Uptown Funk. Oh, it just sends me through the roof. That's like one of my favorite things. I've yet to get sick of that with Bruno Mars. Really do love that groove. It's really cool. So in summary, music has tremendous real estate in our biology, and that's why neuroscience and music is a very fast growing sector of neuroscience. It's a gift from our evolutionary past, and it's a gift for our future, one that can allow us to feel connected even when we're alone, one that can address symptoms of PD from head to toe. So I'm more than happy to take other questions or comments. I'm, of course, interested in how this served you and how it could be better. So I'm going to stop this share, and that will allow me to see people if they come on. It's my hope that you will go home today and do at least one thing, the creation of a playlist, something to deepen and expand your relationship to music. Go deep and go broad, my dears.